Hello, everybody, and welcome to the DATAcated show. I am your host, Kate Strachnyi, and the founder of DATAcated. We have an amazing show put together for you today. We're going to talk about delivering engaging and data-driven user experience. And we're going to have a co-host that I'm going to introduce shortly, as well as two guest speakers that I'll also introduce, and we'll bring them on as the show goes on. As you're joining the show, I definitely want to hear where you're tuning in from and how familiar you are with data-driven user experience. Let us know if you're currently using any embedded analytics tools and sort of give us a hint into your knowledge on the topic. This way we can help drive the conversation. I also love hearing from individuals and letting me know where they're tuning in from. A lot of times we get some interesting participants from all over the world, so I really can't wait to see that in the comments. Make sure you use the comment section for not only asking us questions throughout the show, but also for networking. I know in-person events are almost fully back now, but I still think that there's so much value in joining these live virtual sessions where we can still interact with each other from all over the world. Now, you're going to hear from Sonny Rivera. He is from ThoughtSpot. He is going to be the co-host of the day, and we're going to also be joined at some point shortly by Tina Kung, co-founder and CTO of New.io, as well as Palash Soni, co-founder and CEO of Goldcast. And I'm actually not going to wait. I'm going to go ahead and bring Sonny up on our virtual stage here. Hello, hello. Welcome to the DATAcated show.
Hey, thank you for having me. Boy, am I honored to be here with you. So thank you for having me co-host with you.
Absolutely. So I will tell the audience the day I met Sonny. We were at the ThoughtSpot Beyond event. It was, I believe, May or June of this year, 2022.
It was in May, yeah.
It was May. Sonny was just getting started at ThoughtSpot. And yeah, we got to go to a lot of the sessions together, got to learn a lot more about what ThoughtSpot's up to. Very fun experience. We even got to go to the party after and really get to know each other. So that was fun. And now you're on the DATAcated show. So fun. I love it.
Yeah, I'm so happy to meet you. Yeah, we had a great time. And I was just getting started. I was actually not with ThoughtSpot at the moment. I was just about to start a few weeks later, but I wanted to make sure that I got to that event so that I could better understand them and their customers. It was awesome.
Yes, if you attended that event, you understand everything. Now that's so, Sonny. Now you're the Senior Analytics Evangelist at ThoughtSpot. Let's talk a little bit about how did you get to that role and what are you currently doing?
So, how did I get to that role? Well, first of all, I've been a data person, a data engineer, data manager, data delivery leader for 25 years now, and I've worked with Snowflake, one of our partners, for a long time, and done a lot of presentations, and I really got excited about that. And this person in the industry, you may know her. Her name's Cindy Howson. She called me up one day, and actually she hit me up on LinkedIn one day, and she said, "Hey, we've got this role. Would you be interested?" And I said, "I'd love to talk to you. Yeah, let's do that." And she's like, "How about now?" So we got on the phone. We had a great conversation, and we just hit it off. And I knew after speaking with her for probably 30 minutes, I was like, this is the place for me. So really excited that Cindy tapped me. And so then what do? I kind of have three pillars of what we do. And one of them is provide thought leadership in the industry. Hopefully I have some, but I try to provide that. Work with our customers on maybe directions they should go, helping them out in maybe some strategy or tactical ways to move forward. And then lastly is providing some influence and thoughts as to what should be in our product. What do data leaders, business users, technology users want to see in our product?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you have a lot of free time then from all of that, right? Awesome, I love it. So we're here today to talk about delivering an engaging, data-driven user experience. And I think it's always great to start at the basics, right? So for those who are not familiar with this, what are we here to talk about? And if you want to do a little show and tell, we could do that as well.
Yeah, so let's talk about embedded analytics. And so I will do that. I'll share my screen and we'll talk a little bit about embedded analytics so everyone knows. So perfect. What we see with embedded analytics is the ability to take an analytics tool, i.e. ThoughtSpot, and embed it into your application. And that same tool would recognize the security, the roles, the governance that you have in place, so that you could have something like a business user that has certain access, an analyst that has certain access, and a CMO that has different access. And all of this is white labeled and embedded into your application. This could be for your internal users, it could be for your partners, or it could be for your external customers. And so in this case, I'll just click on, pretend like we're a business user, Camilla, and we can see what Camilla has access to. And here, Camilla can see, predefined live boards that we have for that particular role. She can dig in, do her analysis here. Or you could have a different role for, say, maybe the CMO. The CMO has all of these specific areas in email marketing, web marketing, a high-level overview. Or in this case, I could give the CMO the entire ThoughtSpot application. So she's got her own tiles here. She's got her own dashboards. If she wants to create more, she could use her applications to just start saying, hey, what are my sales, right? Look at live boards. And what this does is allow you to take advanced analytics, embed it into your product, and then have a greater engaging experience with your partners and with your customers. So with that, we'll kind of come back and go from there.
So essentially you're saying that, so ThoughtSpot has a powerful suite of tools, and any company can now take those tools and embed those analytics using ThoughtSpot's Liveboard and all those great features for their own product.
Exactly right. Because why would you build those? You wouldn't build those, and you would leverage our expertise. And the great thing about ThoughtSpot is we don't have user licenses. So as many users as you want to throw at it, that you can throw those users at it. And the last thing I'll add, we call it ThoughtSpot Everywhere. And so it is embedding analytics. You could embed the entire application, maybe just a particular live board, a particular answer, or the search feature. But what it really does is give you access to all of our API, the same API that we're using to visualize the data for you, you have access to, and you can be as creative as you need to be with that API.
And I can imagine companies get very creative, because once you give them the tools and they have the needs that they come to you with. So I wanted to ask you, what is some of your maybe favorite use cases of embedded analytics with ThoughtSpot?
So a couple of them are, well, I'll tell you, I was at Star Compliance, one of our customers the last week, maybe it was before that. They're using it for financial services, compliance, and engaging their users are compliance officers. They're not technical data analysts, so they can do their work, ask their next questions about particular compliance events. So that one is one. And then a subset of that is maybe taking their data and mixing it together with Star Compliance's data to do analytics on the combination of both their data and data that Star Compliance is capturing for them.
Oh, interesting. All right. And, let's briefly talk about some of the benefits of actually bringing these analytics in-app, right? So why do we care as business leaders that our customers are getting to see these analytics in the same app that they're used to using?
Well, it's a seamless experience, right? And if you're a product owner, if you're a builder of a product, you don't want people leaving your product or having kind of a substandard interface for analytics, like, oh, I'll just email them a PDF weekly instead of being able to interact with it live. So that's one of those. To me, being able to have these embedded analytics, have users have a seamless experience where it's driven by the UI, it's driven by user experience, and it creates a sense of community, a sense of engagement. Right. It helps retention. It helps drive additional revenue as well. Right.
Yes, and I'm just thinking from my personal user perspective. Once an app tells me to go somewhere else, I'm like, okay, no, I'm good. Yeah. I don't want to see it that much. And it's like it's not really valuable anymore, because once they tell you to leave, it's like, okay, that's a whole separate thing that I need to sign up for, and it's a huge friction, right, that you're helping to overcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Making it frictionless is tremendous. And we see it a lot of marketing use cases. So, our guests are going to tell us how they do that as well. So
Yes.
let's hear what they have to say.
Yes, I can't wait. I'll bring them on. I'll just ask you one question here from the audience, and we're going to bring on our first guest. All right. So Hutesh is asking, is this embedded system, is it adaptable to environments, or do you have to manualize it? Which algorithm is this for capturing analytics? So basically, is there anything manual that has to happen, or maybe talk a little bit through the process of if a client is interested in using ThoughtSpot embedded analytics, or I guess you call this ThoughtSpot everywhere, right? That's right. The right, I'm trying to get the right lingo here. What would that process look like?
Yeah, so ThoughtSpot everywhere. ThoughtSpot is a SaaS application, so we're completely in the cloud. What I didn't show you, and I should have, I thought about, was showing you a playground, and I'll put a link in the comments. But we have a playground, and you can go in and see exactly what code you need to have to embed ThoughtSpot into your application. It's really exciting, but I'll put that in there. And what we do in that little playground is give you a few toggle buttons to say, hey, I only want this live board, specific live board. Here's the JavaScript code that gets generated for how to integrate security, how to display that live board. You cut and paste that, put it into your HTML code, and ThoughtSpot is embedded into your application.
Oh, that sounds pretty simple. That's great. Yeah. All right, so we'll get a link over to everyone who signed up. We'll send it over in an email, and then we'll put this in the comments so you can click after the show. All right, Sonny, are you ready for our first guest here?
I am.
Awesome. Let's go ahead and bring up Tina Kang.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us. So Tina is the co-founder and CTO at New.io. And Tina, well, welcome to the DATAcated show. Very, very happy to host you here. I can't wait to hear more about you and more about New.
Thank you for having me. So I'm Tina, CTO and co-founder of New. So if you don't already know, New is the last three letters of revenue. News for revenue. New is an easy-to-use RevOps platform that manages the entire revenue lifecycle of modern businesses across all channels.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for being on the show, and I can't wait to get into how you're actually using ThoughtSpot everywhere for New. But before we even get to that, let's talk more about New.io and sort of where you felt you had this need to start to leverage embedded analytics.
Yeah, sure. So first, let's talk about what is RevOps, right? So New is actually RevOps platform. So RevOps is really to align sales, customer success, and finance. All these operations across the entire life cycle of the customer to drive revenue growth. So this is a holistic approach designed to break down the silos between departments. So before New, even tools were siloed. Right, in order to manage RevOps from quotes to invoices to revenue, companies actually have to put in multiple subsystems. For example, a CPQ system, order management system, a billing system, etc., and invest in a lot of IT resources just to stitch these, incompatible systems together. Mm-hmm. And data engineers that pipe the transactions from one system to another. So in the old days, when you were just selling like a few deals a quarter, it may not be a big problem. But now in the modern days, when you have revenue streams flowing in from all different channels, like direct sales, PLG, self-service partners, this becomes a huge headache. And the worst is your revenue data is segmented and scattered everywhere. Yeah, so data from all these transactions, right, from quotes to orders to revenue, is really critical for decision making. So, for example, in today's economy, right, it is really important to know how much percentage of revenue comes from new logos, from upselling, from expansion, or from potential churns, right? So what is the revenue lifecycle if you're launching a new product? Right, believe it or not, a lot of questions are really left unanswered.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask a follow-up question. So in terms of users of New, are there specific industries that are more focused on sort of trying to manage their revenue lifecycle? And care more about this, where is this money coming from? Is it upselling or other sources?
Yeah, so we can see that, like I mentioned, there are actually many different industries, right? So right now, for example, our focus is very much like high tech, and SaaS industry, where the industry is actually leading the innovation of all kind of revenue models in terms of consumptions, pay as you go, credit burn down, all that, right? All of these innovations actually bring in more challenges about revenue management across the board.
All right, so you saw the need, and you're like, we need to get more insights into this space. So I'd love to hear more about your approach. What did you do next after you figured out you have this need?
Yeah, sure. So New is actually a transaction management system, right? So revenue lifecycle, we provide revenue lifecycle platform that streamlines transaction from like closed invoices to revenue. We provide a holistic platform with a single end-to-end view of data. So for each transaction, even when it's as early as a quote or order, we generate really critical revenue metrics like booking AR, CMR, ACV, even sales commissions in real time. So you can see the depth of our data as well as the real timeness of our revenue metrics differentiates us from our competitors. So in addition, right, with our really easy to use UX, our price builder, RevOps can innovate any combinations of revenue models, including like subscriptions, consumptions, pay-as-you-go, tiered discounts, tiered pricing, and many more. So for the first time, this is a platform that allows RevOps to A/B test the pricing and packaging strategy and see results. Yep.
No, that's really interesting. I do have a quick question around, from a revenue ops perspective. You probably have a very different perspective on looking at embedded analytics and what does it do for you from your own revenue perspective? Do you think of it only as retention? Do you think of it as customer value? Do you think of it as loss leader or maybe a freemium model? How do you think about leveraging embedded analytics within your own organization for revenue generation?
Yeah, so really good question, right? So we are a platform where data is calculated, analyzed in real time when transactions occur. So for example, when you upsell a subscription, right, you see the revenue stream of the subscription goes up in real time at the time when you upsell. So when you ingest raw usage, you see usage getting rated and also appear in the usage trending chart in real time. So you mentioned freemium. Guess what? You can configure freemium in minutes and then see how it goes, how it impacts your revenue over time, right? So all these data is actually rolled into analytics, and then you see a lot of real timeness, like I just mentioned, because you can see the charts generated in real time. That's the power of embedded analytics. Yep.
Yes.
So, and then also in addition to all these revenue metrics such as AR growth percentage, NDR, customer revenue churn, those are really popular metrics, right? But our most popular and useful chart is called AR momentum. So you can see both historical data as well as future aggregated AR sliced by the change category. You just mentioned a lot, right? So for example, new logo, right? New customer acquisition, new logos acquired, upsell, cross-sell, expansion, churn, downsells, right? And then you can also use the tool to drill down further to see the data by customers, products, industry, location, and so on. So all these dimensions that you care about in your business.
Awesome. And thank you for sharing that. We had a comment here from Susan Walsh saying that this sounds super flexible. I agree.
Yep.
And I had a follow-up question on that comment. So I'm assuming companies can sort of customize all of the metrics, right, that you have included. So if you have a sales life cycle that looks like this, like ABC, we can customize the percentages of likelihood to close based across all of that life cycle. Yes,
that's exactly right. So New is a transaction system, right?
Mhm.
So we generate all the foundational data, as well as all the foundational revenue metrics, right? So this is when we can actually use the analytics tool to create revenue metrics,
Okay.
additional revenue metrics based on all these foundational data in any ways, right? So what I love about ThoughtSpot is the revenue metrics creation, the metrics creation tool. So basically you can just create metrics, without any coding, right? Which basically is really easy to adopt by not only our developers but customers as well. So they can actually use our very simplistic object model to create or customize revenue metrics. Yep.
Let me follow up on that.
Go
if you
ahead,
don't mind.
Sonny. Are you going to talk about adoption? Because that's where I wanted to go.
Okay, I am, and I'm going to ask a quick question about. You said customizing. Are your users, your business users, customers, customizing questions and answers that are having ThoughtSpot and saving them for later use? They are. So that's actually a really interesting use case, to give them something, then maybe let them customize it and save it, and it's personalized for them, right?
Exactly. So we do create a set of, out-of-box answers and dashboards and worksheets, schema and so on. And then we do create, 3 different light boards, revenue light boards, the quotes light boards, the, billing light boards, revenue light boards, and, so on, right? All these light boards can actually be provided for every single customer for them to further customize according to their own business. So for example, we use our own products, right? We eat own dog food, so we do customize our own dashboard or light boards, right, for our own metrics. Yeah.
Tina, and let's just pretend that you have 1,000 clients now. How long would it take to create this customized view for each of your clients' specific views that they customize for themselves?
That's actually a really big question, right? So I don't have the number for 1,000 customers. However, I do know that one thing I love about ThoughtSpot is the whole TML exports and imports. So basically, if you have a light boards and answers and worksheets, you can export them using a language called TML, right, which exports everything related. And then you can actually just import that for yet another customer, so that the other customer will have the same set of worksheets, all that. And then on top of that, right, since you already have something to start with, on top of that, and then we'll be able to understand what customer wants and then be able to, customize the set of light boards for them. Yeah, so the process is pretty streamlined.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I'm just thinking without this ThoughtSpot everywhere, it would just take a really long time is the answer I thought you were going to say. A lot of back and forth, right? And a really big time and effort investment in order to get to this stage. So because as you were describing it, I'm like, you can really scale this where you don't have to keep holding their hands. I think you said it's no code, so it's fairly easy to set up.
Right? Yep. And then also it's actually, I didn't mention the embedding part because it's super easy to embed. So I didn't even count that as part of the efforts there. So I think with a tool like ThoughtSpot, right? So the effort there is just to really focus on what customers' requirements are, what they want, and then customize the dashboards and light boards, according to the requirements, so that we can actually focus on the business needs. And then that's what New strives for, to just focus on what customer wants and then deliver the best results.
Kate, I'll pick up on part of your question. I've had some customers tell us with other solutions they looked at, they had to mentally design, dashboards, dead boards that would meet the common set of goals for all of their customers, or they couldn't deliver a solution to them, and then they would end up with an 80% solution. And ultimately customers would say, hey, can I get this customized? Well, then that has to be refactored through the entire life cycle of, is this good for all of my customers, or is it just good for this one, right? Ultimately, you end up with a dissatisfied customer. So the ability to actually enable them to customize, save, come back is fabulous.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And just going back before we even touched on this whole customization and the process flow, I wanted to touch on adoption because I think that's key, right? How do you actually get customers to use their imagination and creativity and know what they need? Because we can't just give them a blank page and say, here, create your dashboard. Like, no, that's your job. Like I know what I want, I think, and I want all the data, and I don't know how I want it. So talk to us about adoption rates and how working with ThoughtSpot has, what impact it had on adoption rates.
Yeah, so for customer, I think customer adoption is really, really critical for us, right? So you can see that New provides our data model is it's actually simple to adopt, right? Even though we're solving a really complex problem, right? So when we are searching for a solution, we also would like the tool itself to be really simple to adopt, not just for our engineers, and like no learning curve for engineers when we adopt the tool, but also for the customers as well. That's why, we have our best practices, right? Where we build into the out-of-box light boards, and then when customers saw the light boards, they were like, "Wow, this is the data one."
Magic. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And then they would like to have like little tweaks everywhere, and this is where we can just use all kind of tools in ThoughtSpot to really help our customers to get to what they eventually want. Yep. So adoption, it took us probably a couple of weeks.
Wow.
Not
Okay.
months. Not
Powerful
months.
quote right there.
Yes, not months, just to get the worksheets and light boards ready, and then also embed the tool into our multi-tenant systems. Yep.
So Tina, can you talk about your customer adoption of embedded analytics? Because I love what you guys have done with starting customers off with a place to begin and then going from there. And then a side note, I love the way you actually use live boards now, right? So
Yeah. So light boards is really because I love the name light boards because I mentioned so many times, our data is real time, right? So we generate data in real time, so we like the data reflected in light board in the light boards in real time as well, so that that's their live data. So and then also many, prospects and customers, when, even they were in the sales cycle, asked the question, can we have a different set of light boards and different set of data? And then the answer is always yes, because with the really the data model with the elegance of the technical architecture is actually really easy to not only replicate all these light boards, all these schema, but also can create their own innovation of data.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Tina. And you mentioned 2-week adoption rates and everything is magic and everything is great, but I'm sure as it happens in most big processes, there are challenges and obstacles that you might have faced. So I think it would be really helpful for the audience to hear about maybe some of the hurdles you had to overcome in order to get to where you are now.
Yeah, so there are a couple of hurdles, right? So one of I think the first one was really the understanding of a lot of really kind of embedded concepts of of ThoughtSpot, right? In terms of like the schema, the table schema, and the worksheets, right? The separation of them. I think that's also the beauty. Once we're able to get to that, to understand that, actually everything else becomes easier. And there was definitely trials and error when we were building the schema. And then I think what really help with the generated, it becomes a little technical, but the generated query path and also the raw SQL actually really helps to identify the performance bottlenecks, why the answers didn't really work and all that. And we did run into a few issues with the TML exports and import, because that's what we use to kind of replicate all these dashboards everywhere. Okay, so but I think we got those all resolved by customer support. And then the final stage about adoption is really working with news customers to basically show them the dashboards and then see the light boards actually answer their questions, and then collect more requirements, and then just enrich either the data presentation or the contents of the light boards to solve their needs.
Okay,
But,
so
yeah.
it seems like you had some technical complexities, but the ThoughtSpot team was able to just hop on and help through that process.
Yep. That was really the support was extremely helpful. Yep.
Awesome.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
All right, Sonny, any final questions that you'd have for Tina before we move on to our next guest?
Well, I don't think so. I do have one more comment, though, I think is great. I love the use of live boards. And as it's Halloween, the thought came to me. Cindy was talking about dead dashboards, and I really am now calling those zombie boards, right? These are dashboards that don't know they're dead yet, right? And so I want to get rid of all the zombie boards and focus on live boards.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you so much, Tina, for joining us.
Yes, absolutely, Tina. I definitely want to thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being on the DATAcated show. It was a pleasure to meet you and to host you here.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. All right, Sonny, are you ready for our next guest?
I am ready. Bring them on.
Right. I'll bring them on. Just a quick reminder to our live audience here, if you have questions, we are taking them as they come, so no need to hold them for the end. We're going to ask questions as they come up. So let's go ahead and bring up our next guest, Palash Soni, and I'm going to bring him on stage here. He's the co-founder and CEO of Goldcast. I expected more gold around you, Palash. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a pretty plain background. But
I expected shimmery gold all surrounding. So welcome to the DATAcated show. Thank you for taking the time to be here with us. I think it's always great to start off with introductions. Tell folks who you are and tell us a bit more about Goldcast.
Yeah, glad to be here, Kate and Sonny, and thanks for having me. I'm Palash. I'm the CEO of Goldcast. We are a 2.5-year-old company, slightly younger than that. We started in May, June of 2020. And Goldcast is an event marketing platform for B2B marketing teams. So our goal is to help B2B marketing teams convert events into a strategic pipeline and demand gen, a brand building channel, and provide them the tools that they need to do that. And the impetus of starting Goldcast started with my own experience with ad tech and martech. So I was 4 years in ad tech, which at that time was cool, is not cool anymore. But what I saw is that a lot of money that was coming into digital ad space was coming from billboards and TV and that space, because ads are more measurable, right? And marketers like that, execs like that. And this was a simple insight, which is not obvious to a layperson, was not obvious to me. It became obvious there. And so this is a trend I saw with all the other marketing mediums, right? And I was pretty heavily involved in events, and I always thought, okay, when can events evolve from what they were like 20 years ago, and they were still kind of similar, to something that's more modern, agile, and measurable, right? That serves the purpose of a modern marketing team. And so that thought was top of mind. And when COVID hit, we realized that events will become omni-channel, a lot more data-driven, and this is the opportunity to build something that can be a true partner to B2B marketing teams, which can help them deliver a great experience and give them the right data to dominate. So yeah, that's that's like the founding story of Goldcast.
I love it, and I love that you started, at the height of the pandemic. That's when DATAcated was born too. It was March 2020, so similar time frame. I love that you took that opportunity and you saw what's happening, and just a short 2.5 years, and now you've just closed Series A funding. So congratulations on
That's
the
awesome.
very very quick growth and all of that good stuff. So
Thank you.
yes, I can't wait to hear more about the journey. So to bring us back 2.5 years, you saw that there's an opportunity. What did you do next?
Yeah, Kate. So our first goal was to build. So there are two parts of the product, right? One is very simply, how do you do an event? So as a marketer, I want to be able to throw an event, which could be anywhere, right, from like a simple webinar like this, right, to a complex multi-track, multi-day conference in the online world. So providing them the tools to do all of that. And then the second part of the product is more like a MarTech product, right, which helps them understand, okay, what happened in that event and how does that impact my marketing and my customer's journey. So and that's the part which is our differentiation, because of our focus in for B2B marketers. But for them, all the attendees, and an event is a marketing activity, which is not true for all events, right? Most events are there to make money from tickets and other things. So in that way, our persona was unique. And what we realized when we looked at it is that a digital event is more like, if you want to make it simple to understand, is like a website visit, right? It's a digital touch point, but it's a very heavy duty digital touch point, because it leads to like we realized that an attendee who would spend like 30 to 45 minutes in the event would probably generate like 50 to 70 data points. So that's like a lot for, say, 1,000-person event. That's just an insane amount of data. So a lot of our effort is spent on data analytics and integrations and making that actionable.
Okay, so just to make it clear for the audience, by data points, you mean like if I'm in an event page,
Yeah.
I click on agenda, I click on let's get some swag or take a trivia test, or then I went to see the sponsor booth, and now you're able to capture all of those movements and sort of report back and say, 80% of your people don't care about watching the show, but they care about XYZ, or other way around, right? Is that
Yes,
correct?
somewhat similar, Kate. So it's about like what sessions did they attend, at what points was the interest maximum, what like case studies did they click on, or what answer did they give to a particular poll, what things they were spending time on, because all of the things that are in an event represent your brand or marketing asset, right? So it's in the marketer's interest to know how people interact with it.
And so, as a as a brand, a product, I've done this event, and I've got all this data. But what I really want to know is, what's the ROI of this event? How many of these folks turned into revenue, freemiums, free trials, turned into actual sales not over just like during the event. Obviously, nobody clicks and buys right in the event. What they end up doing is upselling or some other activities. Do you keep that over time, and do you help companies understand that ROI?
Absolutely, Sonny. So that was to get there. We think of it as like a multi-part journey, and the first part, which we are kind of through now, was to just be able to collect all of this data from all the sources, right? Which is mostly like the front end interactions and everything like that, and then be able to push that into system of records, right? So Marketo, Salesforce, all of those. So we did a ton of data engineering and integration iPaaS kind of work to make sure that all of that data is represented inside Salesforce, Marketo, HubSpot in a way where marketers can make sense of it, right? So that was part number one. What we realize is that that's not enough, because our persona is kind of unique amongst the tribe of marketers, right? And so and what we realize is that they are not always the experts, or even want to like go deep in Salesforce, like for instance, or HubSpot or Marketo. So they have like, I would say, tactical knowledge of those platforms, but they don't want to really like deep dive, because those were built for different personas, for sales, for demand gen. And so we see ourselves as the system of record for event marketers, which is the second part of the journey. which got us to ThoughtSpot was how do we, now that we have all of this like connections to all the systems and we hold a lot of data about their customers and prospects, how do we mix and match this data to give them insights about how they impact the customer journey and ultimately how that impacts people buying more, buying faster, or just building a better pipeline for the firm.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for that. So I do want to get into embedded analytics and sort of when you came to the point where like, so, we have this data, people want this data, right?
Yes.
Especially like I run events as well. I run conferences and I rarely have any insight into what sessions were watched. So I'm really interested here.
Yes.
Like I want to know exactly when is the drop off, who was like the most engaging speaker so I can make sure to bring them back. So when did you decide that like, okay, we need to embed all these analytics and this is really going to help our customers?
Yeah, Kate. So we have been in the embedded analytics sort of journey for some time. So we have had a dashboard always, but it's not. But it's a simple dashboard which gives you some basic data, right? So it will like give you some basic insights. And what we realized is that as we expanded beyond the early adopters, as more customers, we are right now around 200 customers. As we start getting into the masses, we realize that those are not enough for a variety of reasons. One is that our customers are not like typical marketers. So their event marketers are very uh, great with like putting together experience. They are very detail oriented so that they make sure nothing goes wrong. They are really empathetic to the attendees. But data is not their strong suite, right? They are not going to like toil in Salesforce dashboards or or Excel or bad dashboards that we used to have. And so, but they do know what they want. And so yeah, we are like, our goal is always to get them the data that they want in a way where it's easy for them to use it and consume it without being experts in BI, which is a nuance that we missed when we built our first like embedded analytics product.
But look, you grow and you learn and you keep growing, right? And that's the evolution. So we had a question here from the audience. So Ravid is asking, why did you end up going with ThoughtSpot? So you had your own zombie boards. Is that okay to call it now?
Absolutely, yeah. We had a ton of zombie boards.
And you knew you had to improve on it. So did you have a specific selection process that you followed? If you can share that and sort of tell us how you ended up with ThoughtSpot.
Yeah, absolutely, Kate. So there are many like anecdotes that I can go, and they might, go here and there, but to capture the essence, hopefully. So when we started scaling, we started running into what our customers would call as issues with dashboards, right? And when we go in deep, we would realize that they are just trying to understand the data that we already have in a way that it makes sense to them. It serves their purpose. And when I started going in deep in the discovery process, even after like 15, 20 customer calls, I was like, we cannot build all of this. This is like 100 dashboards for 10 customers. And either we teach them Excel and have them go at it, or we figure something else out. And surprisingly, what we did when we were pitching to investors in our first round of funding was have mocks of hypothetical dashboards in Figma that talked about, okay, how can I, zoom in, zoom out in the data, right? So there are a ton of like ways in which you can pivot a data in events, right? You can pivot it a session. You can say, okay, I want to look at an attendee level or an organized or an account level or a booth sponsor level. So there are lots of ways in which you can manipulate data. And we felt that it's virtually impossible to actually do that in standard dashboard. So we actually went on a pretty intense evaluation process. Four of our customers are actually players in BI space, right? Big players in BI space, plus our existing vendor. And then we had, I think, 3 or 4 other players. And our goal through this whole process was to be able to give customers the tool that they need to solve their own problem themselves, and not having to sacrifice or be sort of bound by their own BI or analytic skills. So when we looked at ThoughtSpot, it kind of kind of clicked with me instantaneously, because you can click on one particular data point, zoom in on that, and it's like how a normal human would use a dashboard, right?
There
Which
you
is,
go.
yes.
That's what we want.
Yeah, and that nuance again was not something that me, as I've always been an engineer, I didn't realize that it's not something that's very obvious required, but turns out it is, right? People think in that way, where they want to be able to like zoom in and zoom out of data with ease, and that was like the thing that drew us towards ThoughtSpot.
It's interesting that you say that, because when we talk about ThoughtSpot, we talked about the 6 rules, right, for dominating the decade of data. And one of them is data as the new UX, right?
Yeah.
And so we're talking about embedded analytics, but you've hit right on that point of we're using data. We're using this experience layer for data as our new UX. And while we're talking about embedded analytics, I did want to point out that same concepts of self-service, the thing that you're giving to your customers, is what we're giving to back office business users as well, in realizing self-service analytics.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the 2 biggest trends I see in analytics today is self-service and embedded. And you have managed to put both within your product. So that's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Son.
I absolutely love it. Yeah, go ahead, Palash.
And there's this one small point that kind of draws from your point, is that what we also realize is that with it's also impossible to predict how customers will use it, right, once they actually get their hands on it. And for instance, like what I did was I went on calls where customers were unhappy with the data within Excel, right? And I said, okay, this is the data, you tell me what you want. And then they would, like, once they see all of that happening, they would come up with things that it's just impossible for me to predict. So that's what we are trying to achieve with ThoughtSpot, to say, okay, how can we like push the boundaries of how people use analytics, event analytics.
Yeah, and then you're serving so many different users, right? That they all would care about different things. Like someone in charge of planning the next event would care about the sessions and see where the interest lies in their audience, whereas someone else might care about how many did we sell and how much of this did people click on. And I think it's awesome that you can provide that customized experience that they can customize for themselves, which is so powerful. With Tina from New.io, we spoke about adoption rates, and I wanted to hear your journey. I mean, can you beat the 2-week adoption rate that Tina mentioned, or tell us about your experience?
Yeah, okay, good questions. We are still in the early phases of rolling out ThoughtSpot Embedded, but the early signs are pretty encouraging. And our sort of usage pattern looks different, right? Where people have requirements for data in a very short bursty period of time, and they want everything like then and there, and in a very short period of time. So so far we have been great with it. Like, people are able to understand how to navigate it. They get all of the things we needed, and are leaving good reviews. But maybe in a year's time, I'll be in a in a much better spot to comment on adoption speeds.
Yes. Okay. Well, we'll have to have you back and hear from you to see. Awesome, Sonny. Any other questions you wanted to ask Palash?
Yeah, and you might have some thoughts on this too, Kate. As a Palash, you said event marketers were different, and that's absolutely true. When I see these happening, there's this hectic pace of work that goes into an event, and then there's a collective sigh of relief the day after the event, right? And you probably go through this cycle over and over, customer by customer, right? Kate, you probably experience it. So, what does that cycle look like for your customers through your tool? And how can you make Kate feel better as she goes through these types of cycles?
Absolutely, Sonny. So there are like 3 stages that we typically segment the event in, and all of that starts with like an event calendar, right? So every marketing team would have a calendar of events that they need to deliver in throughout the year. That depends on where the marketing has to go. But there's a pre-event part, which is like setting all of that up, making sure everything is right, people know what to do, predicting issues. That's like a big part, and that's where event marketers absolutely shine. They can see issues where you would just miss it, and then the second part is the day of the event, right? And in the day of the event, it is important to have the objective in mind. Like, what is the objective for this particular event? Is it just high level brand building, getting top of funnel people, or is it to engage more bottom of funnel prospects or customers, right? So all of these things, they have to balance. They have to make sure that those engagements go right. And then there's like a cool off period of 12 hours most after the event, where they're like, okay, event is done, we'll relax. And then comes the really challenging part, like, okay, now we have all of this, that has happened in the event. We have all this feedback, data, engagement. We have signals, in Salesforce, etc. How can I, as an event marketer, make sense of all of this? How can I see very simple data points, right, from how many customers versus prospects did I engage, what stages of pipeline did I touch the most, and does it match the expectation of what I had from the event? That's a very simple data point, but it's not simple to get that, and we are trying to do that with ThoughtSpot. To all the way to very complex stuff, which is like, okay, how much pipeline did I actually influence, which happens over time, right? So that like hectic pace picks up again, and that's more stressful, we realize, for them, because they our event marketers are, that's not their strong suite, and so we try to make that easy for them, to help them figure out what that data can, or what your event did, and how you can iterate on your future events to actually meet your marketing goals.
Can I follow up with one last question?
Yeah.
And
Go for it,
that is,
Sonny.
you kind of told us that life cycle that you go through. What's next for Goldcast and embedded analytics, or just with Goldcast in general? What's next for you guys?
Yeah, that's a great question, Sonny. So our goal is to, as I said, to become to own the event marketing as a channel, right? And so we think of ourselves as a MarTech platform, which uses events as a channel, then an event tech platform. So a lot of our product is very like data based, right? So our current focus is to actually to go in super deep into helping teams figure out unique insights that they need to really work hard to deliver, right, in one platform. So right now, if you look at all the other big go-to personas in the go-to-market teams, right? CSMs have Gainsight, where they have all their data. No CSM actually logs into Salesforce now, right? And the SDRs have Outreach. Their data is being shown there. Demand gen people have their marketing automation. There is nothing actually for event marketers, and so we want to become that system of record. But what I call it like system of actionable record. So that actionability comes from just being able to surface the right data at the right time in the right manner. And so we are pretty big on embedded analytics. Like it's one very key part of what we want to achieve in the next 2 years.
Love it.
Amazing. I just want to share. So when you describe the pre-event, the day of the event, and then the post-event, so I run 6 online conferences so far. I also saw the opportunity where I saw everything closed down with COVID, and I joined a couple of live conferences on some platforms, which I guess are competitors of Goldcast. But I wasn't a fan, and I'm like, this is so cumbersome. So that's why I started live streaming my conference. I'm like, let's make this as frictionless as possible,
Yes.
which is great for the audience and the speakers. But as an event host and moderator, I have very little insight into what are people watching, what do they care about. And one thing I struggle with post event is getting feedback. So I would send out a type form or Google form. I've experimented with emails, anything, to just get some sort of insight, like, did you like this? What do you remember? Who was the best speaker? Trying to get insights.
Yeah.
I'll pay you, just give me insights. We'll have a gift card raffle. I've tried so many things, and people do give feedback, but obviously not everyone. And it's quite a small percentage of the audience that actually takes the time to click a link and fill out your 5-question form.
Right.
And I'm thinking with something like Goldcast, it would be great because you're getting that feedback without people actually telling you anything. You're just observing behaviors, and you're able to get that data. So I think that's super powerful.
Yeah, we have realized we can actually look at the dashboards and kind of predict what the event NPS would be like, because we have this like nice graph in ThoughtSpot, which shows like what the viewership has been. And if you see like a sharp drop at some point, it's like, there's something wrong, and we can correlate it with the event NPS.
Awesome. Well, Palash, I know we've gone a bit over time, so I apologize, but I want to thank you so much for being on the DATAcated show. And yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to educate us, to inspire some folks, maybe like myself, to go check out the platform as well. So thank you for sharing your journey of working with ThoughtSpot and how you chose them. I'm sure it was a very rigorous selection process that you went through to actually get
Awesome.
to this.
Amazing. Thank you again. And what a great journey. So thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks
can't wait to see more from you.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Goodbye.
Awesome. All right, and obviously thank you to Tina, who spoke before Palash. It was great to hear two very different journeys and sort of how they leveraged ThoughtSpot Everywhere, aka embedded analytics, for those who don't know, to do their job better, to serve their clients better, to make their clients' lives easier, and allow them to customize the data to how they want to consume it, which I think is so powerful. So yes, I'll stop my rant there. Sonny, any final thoughts on the topic of data as sort of the new user experience standard?
Yeah, well, I think you've seen two really good examples of what innovative customers are doing to provide more value to their customers. And I think that's the key. The takeaway here is if you listen to Palash, he talked about this is what event marketers need. Everything he talked about was for event marketers, not what he needed. And the same thing Tina talked about in common was, what do our customers need? How can we get it to them and make it, I think you use the term quite often, frictionless and customizable. Yeah. So two really good examples. So take note.
Yes, absolutely. I think it all comes down to using human psychology to help benefit yourself, right? So we know how people operate. We know that they're not going to click that extra link. We know that they're not going to go to another site to look at their data. Very few will export the data and drop it into Excel or other data platforms where you can analyze data. Not many have the right skill set to begin with to actually do that. So I think so many friction, so many walls removed where you can just in-app bring all of those analytics and insights to your customer is just very powerful.
Yeah, I think you're going to see more of that. I think with data sharing and things like that, what you're going to see is companies like Goldcast and New be able to say, this is how you're benchmarking against your category in your industry, right? And because you're going to share data in, maybe it's in aggregate, but how well am I doing? How well is my sales cycle versus my competitor or the industry? How well is my sales cycle or marketing cycle versus the industry? So those will be interesting to see. And all of that is enabled with modern data stack, embedded analytics, and really innovative companies like Goldcast and New.
Yeah, now I'm wondering, how well is the DATAcated conference comparing to other online data conferences?
Oh, no. So you're one of those. I gave you something to worry about. I'm so sorry.
No. Actually, it's not worry. It's more of an intrigue and a curiosity and excitement.
That's what makes you a data person, right?
Desire to improve. That's what it is. And make sure I serve my audience better. I think I'm always all about the audience and making sure that they're getting the value that they deserve. So I do want to thank you so much, Sonny, for taking the time here. Before we wrap, I always like to ask where people can go to learn more about the topic, and also if they want to continue the conversation with you, where can they go?
Well, first of all, I will say, ThoughtSpot Everywhere. Don't forget to post the link. We'll post that link for folks that are interested. You'll find me on LinkedIn a good bit, so find me there. You'll find me on Twitter as well, but mostly LinkedIn. And then there's some great content on ThoughtSpot's blog around ThoughtSpot Everywhere. Recently, let me see what's coming up recent for me. I'll be presenting at Snowflake's Build Conference.
Oh, nice.
November 15th and 16th. So check that out. I'm going to show you how to build machine learning models in Snowflake and Python, and then evaluate them and look at the outputs for business users with ThoughtSpot.
Awesome. I love it. Okay, everyone, go check that out. And in addition to the link to the playground, I'm also going to share the link to the Insider's Guide to Improving customer UX. So I think we have a link to that ebook. I'm going to share that in an email as well as in the comments here.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So
absolutely. Thank you so much, Sonny. I will see everyone online. Stay DATAcated, everybody. Thanks for joining.
All right. Bye, y'all.